it seems to me that it is terribly important that those of us who are healthy and who smoke marijuana because we enjoy it, or we enjoy the detachment it gives us, the way it allows us to look at the world, I think it's important we not try to sneak in under the guise of medical use. Now, saying that, I'm not saying if I lived in California, I absolutely wouldn't get a doctor's recommendation, because frankly, it looks like a get out of jail card, or maybe even better than that, maybe a never get arrested card. And those are pretty valuable. And just maybe all of us should have one if we live in California. But at the same time, as we advocate the issue, I think it's terribly important we separate the two, and that we not try to have everybody who's a little depressed or everybody who had a bad day qualify along with MS patients and AIDS patients and seriously ill patients who would literally die without this medication. First, I think it weakens the medical use argument. It makes it look less legitimate. We know what our opponents do. They always grab some healthy looking patient in the footage if they have a choice and say, look what the medical marijuana my eye. He's not in a wheelchair. You know, there are some diseases you don't have to be in a wheelchair, but they forgot that. So it undermines that. It also may be a box canyon. Lester Grinspoon has been warning us for years about the pharmaceuticalization, he calls it, of marijuana. What he picked up long before most of us acknowledged that he was right is that so long as a drug company can patent it and make a profit off of it, our opponents don't really have any trouble with allowing the ingredients for marijuana to be sold legally for patients to have pain reduction if they can get it from the ingredients, from the cannabinoids, the THC, the terpenes, whatever parts of the marijuana plant are getting it. They don't have any problem so long as you don't smoke it, and so long as some drug company can patent it and make a profit. Thus you got Marinol approved in record time, all the way down to Schedule 3 now. It's almost over the counter, for Christ's sake. They never went through any tough tests. Now we have side effects, which I know some people in our movement are both invested in or involved in. Look, I think it helps a lot of people. It's wonderful. It's more organic than Marinol. It's at least whole THC instead of synthetic, and it at least has its two other ingredients that I think makes it probably more well-rounded. But the fact is, that's exactly what Lester Grinspoon warned us about. What do you think is going to happen to all the people in California, for example, if this should happen, but in other states it will happen, where they say, okay, medical marijuana is no problem, but you can't smoke it. Here's your three choices of drugs. You're going to have hundreds of thousands of people who are really recreational users primarily, who are going to be back on the black market because they don't want to take a damn Marinol patch every time they were otherwise smoking a joint. So we got to watch out. I think there's a box canyon if we're not careful to separate those two issues. To separate them, by the way, all I'm really saying is that they taught us in law school about offenses which are bad in and of themselves. They were immoral. I think the Latin expression they taught us earlier was malum in se. And then those offenses which are malum prohibitum. They're bad because we say they're bad. And all crime fits in one of those two categories. If it's in the malum in se, the immoral kind, it involves moral turpitude. Murder, rape, robbery, those have always been crimes, even where there were no specific statutes. They were crimes under the common law because they were immoral. Marijuana smoking is in a category like speeding, like spitting on the sidewalk, like smoking marijuana. There may be valid reasons why you want to limit where that can be done or how often or whatever, but if there's no morality, there is nothing to be ashamed of because it's not immoral. And so as we incorporate that concept better, I think we will get better at justifying coming out of the closet, overcoming those negative stereotypes they built up for 75 years, and letting more Americans know that most marijuana smokers are just good Americans who work hard and contribute to their communities. Let me talk a little further. Well, for who smokes marijuana today? I think we covered most of this. You've got roughly 1 out of 2 Americans who smoke, and that's according to the private surveys. You got 40% who smoked, according to the federal government. 26 million the last year, 15 million regular smokers. The overwhelming, this is an interesting point, think about it, to the people that are so frightened the sky is going to fall. You know, the overwhelming majority of those people did not even go on to become regular marijuana smokers. Not only do they have no problems, they just experimented with it a few times. It didn't sell them, they were comfortable doing something else. I think that's perfectly fine. The vast majority of the tens of millions of Americans who smoke marijuana are otherwise law-abiding citizens. That's a crucial point to consider. If the fact was that smoking marijuana is associated with some really antisocial behavior, somehow most marijuana smokers also broken injured or something to fill their spare time, then we know there's a problem there. That's not. It's the only law most marijuana smokers ever break. It's the marijuana law. It's also important to realize no one's going to end marijuana prohibition for us because we have the most at risk. We also have the opportunity to fix it with those numbers. If we become better disciplined, if we accept the basic pledge that I will never again vote for a politician who wants to treat me as a criminal. And that's a hard pledge to take because it means that what we all have done for most of our lives, we've had national and state candidates, sometimes local candidates who actually support stuff we like, but on state and federal usually, we may like some of the stuff they support, but when they get to drug policy, come on, we're holding our nose, man. We're voting for them because at least they're pro-abortion or at least they care about human rights or there's some other reason. But it's not because they're honest on our issue in most cases, or clearly are exceptions. We have the political clout that if we took that pledge, within 2 election cycles, every candidate running for office would be supporting our position because they would have seen the candidates who got thrown out of office because they didn't have the courage to support our rights. But that requires us to be disciplined. Never again vote for a candidate for public office that wants to treat you like a criminal. Quickly, I want to mention this only because it's in California. I remember a couple of years ago especially, the drug czar went into a big deal about trying to demonize marijuana smokers. They're always trying to demonize us one way or another, but this one I thought was particularly crude and rude because they claimed that we were responsible for terrorism. You remember that one?
Yeah.
If you buy marijuana, you're supporting terrorists. Well, you know, there's a couple of things I think the drug czar missed on this one. One is, most marijuana smoked in the U.S. today is grown in the U.S. today. Does this man not know we have developed a grow-a-marijuana market second to none in the world? We have 5 first-grade marijuana grown in every state in the country. I don't want to get too close to home, but I'll be honest with you. I know who I buy my marijuana from, and there are a couple of young entrepreneurs. Some of them might even live in a Northern California county, and I don't think they have the slightest damn interest in terrorism. You know, when I send that money to them, I'm quite comfortable. They're using it to support their families and probably plant another crop. Now, of the countries that do import a little marijuana to America, or we import some, it's almost all Jamaica, Canada, and Mexico. Well, I haven't seen any of those 3 countries on the list of terrorist-supporting countries we're supposed to watch out for. And by the way...
Jamaican terrorists?
Oh, the famous Jamaican terrorists, yeah. They scare me all the time. And also, if the end consumer of a product that somehow in the economic chain benefits terrorists is going to be held responsible, then I tell you, any of you driving SUVs better be putting those things aside. What do you think that oil money does? I don't hear anybody claiming they're supporting terrorists. So, in any event, a low-life argument, and one that we shouldn't be hearing at this time, but that's the quality of leadership we have at the White House. Now for the good news real quick. And again, I realize most of you know this issue as well as I do, but it is helpful to remind ourselves sometimes that we've come a long way. As I say, in many ways, I think we've done the heavy lifting. When we started 35 years ago, I don't know the exact percentage, it's been too long since I've seen them, but I think roughly 30 to 35% of the public agreed with us that you should not treat a marijuana smoker like a criminal. That meant about 2 out of 3 Americans said, no, actually, we're perfectly happy treating you guys like criminals. That has so changed, which means, well, on the medical use issue, it's 75 to 80% in any state you want to go. You go to Alabama, it's 75%. I think some of the northern states has been as high as 80% of the public say, of course, if a doctor says marijuana will help a seriously ill patient, they should be allowed to use it. 80%. That may not be too surprising because that's an easier issue. How about recreational smokers, the rest of us? The best poll in this was CNN and Time Magazine. It's about 2 years old now, I think. And they asked the question of, what penalty do you prefer for just recreational marijuana smokers? And the choice, was jail and a lot of jail and a fine only and no penalty. Well, there were 4% that actually wanted no penalty, which was pretty good, and 72% said fine only. That means in total, 3 out of 4 Americans are now on record as saying the essence of what NORML has been about for 35 years. We've been saying marijuana smokers are not criminals. And that's what 3 out of 4 Americans agree with. So, folks, you should be proud. We should all be proud. We made enormous headway in changing people's hearts and minds. That's the good news. The bad news is, how the hell do we convert that into public policy? We seem to have been stymied. I mean, one would think politicians would read the same surveys we read. and they do.